Morning, Ivan. Thanks for joining us today. Looking forward to hearing about your business and what you've done. So tell us a bit about yourself, please.
Oh, where to start? Well, look, I kind of started my own business while I was in year 12. So I'm almost 50. So it's been about 32-year journey of being bootstrapped and running companies. I've sat on boards. I've done a lot of things over the years, but in the last couple of years, my core focus has been developing the Pixel Boss Group. So that's probably what excites me and what keeps me up at night and gets me up nice and early. So that's very much about using the smarts of everything I've learned over the last 30 years in business, in traditional, whether it be in sports, health, entertainment, with government, so forth. But at front and center is really leveraging the new Web3 blockchain technology that's coming through. Absolute game changer. And the thing I was told many years ago that I couldn't do with my core business department of the future that I've been running for 15 years, because I'm a sole owner, sole director, kind of rowing down the ocean on my own, is give that certainty and comfort to large global and national brands that you have a team that can deploy big projects. So that was always front and center for me with Pixel Boss. So what I spent a lot of the first 6 months was building a world-class committee of people that I've known for many, many years that have come to support the build and the structure of Pixel Boss. And then I had my legal firm and advisory firm sort of help on those structures. And as a result of that, they actually ended up being a founding partner of Pixel Boss. So someone I admire for a million reasons is Trent Blackett. So he's the founder of EMT Partners. He got very lucky very early, taking the Hemsworths to the US. The rest is history. They've done a lot of amazing things together. One of those things being the building of the Center app that they sold last year for about 240 million or 280 million US. So there's lots of really beautiful examples of what Trent's done on a global level with high-end sort of people and brands. But I just love how he works, how he operates, how he builds and deploys businesses. So having him to one side is phenomenal. And on the other side, I've got Ben at JM, Joseph Mark, have a number of sort of verticals as part of their group. But again, they're very much about sustainable business and tech. They got very lucky early on in their world building MySpace. And so we're talking 20 years ago, and they've been building global platforms ever since. So that's kind of, yeah. So with Pixel Boss, we have a private club in Armidale. We're about 68 members strong. We've got Disney, Amazon, Australian Open. I can gloat on and on about our membership position there. And what that allows us to do is to build products for ourselves, with them, for them. And we are now moving through a number of industries, but with really talented, passionate people. So that's so it's a business club, and there's a bunch of young crew in there as well, which is phenomenal because, again, they're the future of what comes next. And so we lean into them and they lean to us, and together we're building those sort of beautiful moments through the club. Then we've got our agency, which is an engagement agency. I won't go on bang on about that because it would take too long, but it's on our website, pixelboss.io. The agency deck's there. But the secret sauce that we've been building for that is all of the tech. So again, we've got a number of tech partners. We had our first official project that went live in Korea last week, which exceeded the client's expectations by 250%, which numbers don't mean a lot, but the results do. The results were there and really engaged sort of outcomes for that. And that was for AACo, Australia's biggest meat exporter. And it was a promotion with Wagyu beef, et cetera. But yeah, that's, and I could tell you about a number of things that we've got at the moment, but most of those things take a lot to explain.
You mentioned quite a few businesses then, Ivan. Who's your ideal client or customer?
If I'm wearing my Pixel Boss hat,
who pays the bills?
Oh no, if I'm wearing my Pixel Boss hat, like we've all walked in and out of entertainment, film, like working on all those fun stuff. But our ideal client, one of the things that I wanted to do as a billboard in my office, and I have it in the office down the laneway, make boring interesting. So our whole ecosystem, our mindset is working with industries that get left behind because they're uncool or deemed boring. And when you can shift the narrative with a cohort of people different and build something different where they become like front and center and make something interesting, all of a sudden you can really shift the narrative of how they feel valued, therefore how they respond with a brand. And that's really important to us. Right. So, yeah.
What's the biggest challenge you're facing in business right now?
For me personally, is
your business or you? Yeah.
It's for me personally, it's time. So the one thing you can't buy is time. So I run 3 companies. I wish I knew how some of these people do it, but I'm learning to sort of try and do less to achieve more. So for me personally, it's time. And for Pixel Boss, it's much the same. We're spoiled. We're getting probably more inbound inquiries. So I'll get 1 million emails a day on Facebook, etc., about outbound, like people trying to get us clients and sales. We're like, well, no, actually, we're not looking for new clients. We're building with what we've got. But yeah, our biggest challenge will be over the next 12 to 24 months is just really strong senior recruits that can help build out some of the verticals that we've got in the works.
Right. What's the biggest learning you've had since being a business owner?
Probably not to do too much at once, which is still my biggest problem. So I probably
sounds like you are though.
I'm just a serial pest when it comes to doing business. But no, I think what I've learned, I think just to trust in people more. And in order to do that, it all comes back to getting the right people on board. And that's why I'm so stoked with Pixel Boss, is that I've got like just very clever people around me to do that. But yeah, I guess just being built for purpose. I've had my traditional business, Web 2 business, Department of the Future. I've always had great people, but not always the right person for the right sort of client and job. And that's where you sort of come undone sometimes.
Right. What have you learned about yourself during your journey in business?
God, I think it's just, I think just to back yourself, some of my biggest failures have led to my biggest successes. So I've actually lost some of the biggest clients that you should do everything they say. And I'm like, well, get fucked. Like, I'm not going to do what they want because I don't believe in what they believe in. I don't think that you should treat a community, a client or a product in the way that the board wants it, because what the board wants and how you should deploy a campaign or strategy into wherever you're going isn't necessarily the right thing to do. So I think backing yourself is important, and I've learned to do that more, but without the sting. My biggest problem is I have a very sort of strong opinion that isn't always presented the nicest way possible.
Right. Okay. Where do you find your inspiration each day to do what you do?
Oh, mate, everywhere. I'm inspired by everything, because I spent a lot of time in my 20s and 30s learning about lateral strategic thinking, and eventually I ended up with this piece of paper that says, congratulations. And, I got a PhD on lateral thinking to do with business and media. And I've been pushing and pulling those 2 levers for 20 plus years. And it's what's underpinning a lot of what we do and what we're going to do to disrupt a lot of what's happening in industry. Because, the reality is I think traditional advertising is nothing but noise. And I think if we shift the narrative a little bit and create different approaches to engage with people, inherently you're going to get better outcomes.
What would you say to someone thinking of going into business?
It just depends on your circumstances, because I had breakfast this morning with someone at a GM level at a very huge organization that's going to exit to work with us soon with not the same certainty that they've had. You know, they've got 3 kids in private schools. Who knows what their mortgage is? Like, they've got high risk. So,
Yeah, sure.
you know, and again, it depends on your circumstances. Like, you asked me the same question 20 years ago. I was happy to sleep on a couch and eat 2-minute noodles. The truth is now I have a lot more, but my thinking hasn't changed. So I'm a massive risk taker. But yeah, it's just different for everyone. So I'm not sort of, yeah.
Ivan, if you started your business again, or businesses, what would you do differently?
Well, what I'm doing differently is what I do differently from everything I've done before. And that is to have a really strong foundation based on people, not money. Because a lot of people come through with a good idea, the right person at the right time, money in the bank, and they burn it. It's no different to people that you hear that win Tats Lotto and 3 years later they're broke again or not around anymore. So new money is really harmful money for most people. So I think when it comes to business, just having the right business structure with the right people will give you a much better result, because you can fast track success very quickly with confident people.
Right. What would be the best advice you'd give to your 18-year-old self?
My best advice to my 18-year-old self, I don't want to sound like an idiot, but I can't answer that because I've just always backed myself, and
Well, I think that's probably the answer, though, Ivan. I think having asked you again, that probably is the answer, that you've backed yourself and you've learnt along the way, you've taken the risks, and that's how you've learnt and grown, by taking those risks.
Oh, absolutely. I've probably cried hundreds of times in the last 30 years because something's gone wrong, but I don't stop. I just fight harder. And then every 5 years, someone looks at me and goes, geez, you're lucky. And I'm like, fuck, you got no idea. Yes, the success there, but what's come, the battle scars are deep, you know? But yeah, I would say what comes with that is that, you know, whoever sees this on the interwebs could rarely ever say that guy's fucked me over. Like, I may have not been your cup of tea, but I'm always about being honorable and doing the right thing and fighting for a lot of things that are important to me. As a father of a daughter, I want the best for everyone. And in this case, really leaning into equality with women and how all these sort of different genders that play around. I don't buy into that, but I'm also respectful of that. And then I look at what happens with First Nations people, and I look at really doing, I'll walk over glass to create opportunities in that space. And I've been proudly working with a number of Indigenous communities for the last 7 years. And what we've seen and working on now, you couldn't imagine that was going to be the conversation even 5 years ago. And it gives me goosebumps knowing what we're working on currently into the near future in that category. And it's not a category, but it is from a business sense. But changing the narrative, the culture, the ability to move the needle on that is probably one of the most exciting things we do.
Yeah, fantastic. So what do you see as one of the major challenges in your industry moving forward?
The biggest challenge, and again, in Pixel Boss, is allowing traditional media, traditional brands, businesses to understand the power of Web3 technology. It scares the absolute fucking shit out of everyone, because when you talk to a tech person, they just talk in absolute gibberish. And when I started to humanize the tech in conversations 1.5 years ago, all the Web3 people, and they call them the DJs, all these sort of people that are really early to the game, were kind of laughing me out of the room because I was being like, you know, I was sort of demisting all of it all. And also, a lot of what has been built that's failed isn't the technology, it was the approach. So when mainstream brands start to understand how technology can shift the narrative of how they do business, how they build their business based on a community first mindset. So you go from having a customer, consumer to partner to a community. And when you understand what that does and how you deploy that, all of a sudden you get a stickier audience and stronger revenue. And, you know, there's a number of things in Web3 that does that better than any tech that's come before.
Right. Fantastic. That's been great, Ivan. Thank you so much. Really appreciate giving that great information and history of your journey. And wish you every success for the future too, which I'm sure there'll be a lot more for you to develop too for what you've done so far.